3 people are dead, and the machine that killed them met code. So the only thing left to explain is why you were 4 minutes late to the valve. 3 people are dead, and the machine that killed them met code. So the only thing left to explain is why you were 4 minutes late to the valve. 4 minutes. You were the commander. You had 1 valve to close, and your hands took 4 minutes to close it.
Russ went home. He turned in his certification the next week, the card that said the state trusted him to stand between people and the things that could kill them. And he took a job driving a shuttle van, where nobody's life would ever again depend on whether his hands would do what he told them. It comes back. Tonight, the wind is about to turn first. The chlorine alarm went off at 11:40 on a Tuesday night.
Test alarm. 3rd one this week.
Reset it and get back to your lane, Booney. We've got a shift to run.
3rd one this week. Doesn't that number bother anybody in here?
It bothers me that you're still standing in my doorway. Reset it!
Russ Boone was 57 years old now, 2 years into driving that van, and he had come into the control room to drop off a set of keys. He did not move toward the reset button. He did not go back to his van. He was looking out the window, up, at the windsock on the roof, which had just swung 90 degrees and was now pointing south, straight at the houses, while the laminated evacuation map on the wall beside him kept its bold arrow pointing confidently north. Boone? Selby turned in his chair. You hear me? I said reset it. That alarm is telling the truth, Russ said, and your map is lying, and the wind just picked a side. All 3 of those things are happening in this room right now, and you've decided to argue with the one person who can see all 3. The room went quiet. Wendell Pratt, the night shift lead, looked up from his clipboard. 2 operators at the panel stopped what they were doing. Excuse me, Selby said. Smell the air coming through that intake. That's not a test. Tests don't have a smell. Russ nodded at the map on the wall. And that paper routes an evacuation north, up Cedar Street, which as of about 90 seconds ago is directly downwind. If you hand these people that map tonight, you will be handing them a walking route into the cloud. So no, I'm not going to reset it. I'm going to stand here and be a problem. Selby looked at him for a second, and then he laughed, and it was not a cruel laugh, which was somehow worse. It was the laugh of a man who has decided he does not have to take the person in front of him seriously. The shuttle driver, Selby said to the room, is going to explain chlorine to us. He turned back to his panel. Reset the alarm, Wendell. And Boone, do us both a favor. Stay in your lane. Drive your van. Leave the plant to the people who run the plant. The wind doesn't read the plan. It takes whoever's downwind. Somebody has to look up at the sky instead of down at the paper. Russ Boone had spent 2 years learning to stay in his lane. He kept his hands low where nobody could see them shake, and he did not tell anybody that he had once been the person they called when a whole town was downwind of something that could kill it. He turned to go back to the van. Then a dog started barking out past the fence, in the dark where the houses were, and Russ Boone stopped in the doorway because he knew that particular kind of barking, and he knew what usually came after it. You hear that? He said. Hear what? Selby said. A dog. It's a neighborhood. There are dogs. That's not a dog that hurt a raccoon. That's a dog that can't get a clean breath. Russ did not turn around. Listen to it. In a second, it's going to stop. And when it stops, that's not the dog calming down. That's the dog going under. Nobody in the room said anything. And a moment later, the dog stopped. And here's the thing nobody in that control room knew. The thing that would not come out for another 20 minutes. The voice from that hearing room, the one about the 4 minutes, had a place and a night behind it. The place was a fertilizer plant called Ridgeline. The night was 2 years ago. Russ Boone had been the state hazardous materials incident commander for the whole Western District, the voice onto the radio telling 400 people which way to run, a man who read wind the way other men read a newspaper. And then there was a valve at Ridgeline that had to be closed by hand, and for the first time in his life, at the exact moment it mattered most, his hands would not do what he told them to. They locked up on the wheel. They shook. By the time another man reached the valve and closed it, 4 minutes had passed, and 3 people downwind had breathed something they could not take back, and 2 of them did not come home, and the third would spend the rest of her life carrying a tank of air on her shoulder. The inquiry cleared him. The equipment met code, the voice said. There was no one to blame but a pair of hands. And Russ believed it and turned in his card, and that was the mistake he could not name for 2 years, not the 4 minutes, the believing that his hands were the whole story. Tonight the wind had changed, and he was the only one in that lot who had looked up. And that was the dog Russ had heard from the doorway, the one that went quiet mid-sound. He had felt the whole 2 years fall off him when it stopped, because he knew exactly what that silence meant and exactly how much time it left. Wendell? He stepped back into the room. The reset log. How many times has that alarm gone off this week? Really? Wendell Pratt and looked at his clipboard, then at Selby, then back at Russ. It says 3. 3 test alarms. Read me the times, out loud. Wendell hesitated, then read. Monday, 2 in the morning. Wednesday, 4 in the morning. Tonight. Test alarms don't happen at 2 and 4 in the morning, Wendell. Test alarms happen at shift change, on a schedule, when a technician pushes a button. An alarm that goes off in the dead middle of the night 3 times is not a test. It's a sensor telling the truth to a room full of people who keep telling it to be quiet. Russ came all the way in now, and something in his voice had picked up an old authority that made the 2 operators turn around. Pull the actual sensor log, not the reset log, the real one, the one that records the parts per million before somebody clears it. Because I already know what it says. It's been climbing all week, a little more each night. That's not a glitch, that's a leak getting worse. Selby stood up. That is a very serious accusation from a man who parks cars. Then pull the log and prove me wrong. Pull it, show the room a flat line, and I'll walk back to my van and you'll never hear from me again. Russ met his eyes. Go ahead, pull it. Selby did not pull the log. That was the first answer, and it was louder than anything he could have said. You were state hazmat. It was Wendell, quiet, staring at Russ like he was seeing him for the first time. I know you. You were the incident commander at Ridgeline. You were Boone. I was. My cousin was on Dwight County side that night. He talked about the commander who ran it. He said the man read the wind like he could see it. Wendell's voice dropped. They said you froze. I did? Russ did not look away. At the end, on the last valve, my hands wouldn't close it, and 4 minutes went by, and 3 people were downwind. I've spent 2 years making sure I'd never be in a position to freeze again. That's why I drive the van, Wendell. A van doesn't have a valve. Then why are you standing here telling me about a valve? Because the wind didn't check whether I still had a card. He nodded at the sock on the roof. It turned, and I'm the only man in this lot who felt it turn, instead of reading that it wouldn't. So we can talk about Ridgeline later, or we can talk about the fact that you've got a chlorine cloud crossing your fence line right now. Your call. But make it fast, because the wind already made its call, and it did not ask either of us for a certification. Wendell looked at the sock one more time. Then he looked at the houses. What do you need? I need you to stop calling me the shuttle driver in your head, Russ said. Everything after that, I'll walk you through. And the houses on the downwind side of the Halvers Creek fence belonged to people who had lived there since before the plant expanded. 40 homes in the first 2 blocks. Most of the people in them were asleep. One of them was a woman named Esther Kane, 70 years old, who slept in a recliner because her lungs no longer let her lie flat, with an oxygen concentrator humming beside her chair, pulling in the night air, concentrating what it found, feeding it through a thin tube to the prongs in her nose. Another was a 16-year-old girl named Delia Boone, doing homework at the kitchen table with a 2-way radio next to her math book because her father had left it there years ago from a job that took him places where cell phones did not work, and had shown her how to use it so he could reach her when the cell towers in their low pocket of the valley dropped out, which was most nights. Russ Boone had 2 people downwind tonight, and one of them was his daughter, and he had not told anyone in that control room either of those things. He keyed the radio on his belt as he walked out of the control room fast toward the fence. Delia, it's Dad. Pick up. A pause, a crackle. Dad? It's almost midnight, what? Listen to me and don't ask questions yet. There's a chlorine release at the plant. It's small, but it's real. And the wind is pushing it toward our block. He was walking faster now, past the shuttle van, toward the section of fence closest to the houses. I need you to wake up, and I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that? You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. Do it anyway. He reached the fence. Out past it in the dark, another dog stopped barking, farther away this time, and he marked it, the way you mark a shell landing. And he understood that the cloud was moving house by house, and he could hear exactly where it was. The gas was invisible, but the dogs were not, and one by one, from the houses nearest the fence outward, they were going quiet. There is a procedure, Selby said. He had followed Russ out to the fence, with Wendell behind him, and he had a laminated card of his own now, the plant emergency action plan, and he was holding it up like a shield. There is a procedure, and the procedure says that in the event of a release, we shelter in place, and we wait for the county hazmat team. And we do not order a civilian evacuation on the say-so of one man. Do you know what a false evacuation costs? Do you know what happens to this plant if we scramble 400 people out of their beds and it turns out to be a faulty sensor? I know what a real one costs, Russ said. I've seen the bill. It's higher. You don't know that it's real. I know that the wind is out of the north now, and your plan assumes it's out of the south. Russ turned on him. Your whole evacuation map, the one on your wall, the one you'd hand these people if you did evacuate, it routes them north, up Cedar Street, which tonight is straight downwind. You'd be walking them into it. Your paper is going to kill the people it's supposed to save, because your paper was printed on a day the wind blew the other way. And paper doesn't feel the wind change. Paper never feels anything. That's the whole problem with trusting it. The procedure was approved by a man who has never once stood downwind of what that tank does. I have. Twice. Russ stepped closer. Look at the sock, Gordon. Not the card. The sock. It's 15 feet over your head. It's pointing at 40 houses full of sleeping people. And it doesn't care what your card says. Look up. Wendell looked at the windsock on the roof. It was still pointing south, toward the houses, plain as a hand. Gordon, Wendell said slowly, the sock is pointing at the houses. The sock is one instrument. It's the instrument that's outside, Russ said, feeling the actual wind, instead of the one that got laminated 18 months ago and hung on a wall. The wind doesn't read the plan. It takes whoever's downwind. Somebody has to look up at the sky instead of down at the paper, and right now I'm the only one in this lot who's looked up. He keyed his radio again. Delia, the paper on our door, the little evacuation notice the plant mailed to everybody. What direction does it say to go? His daughter's voice came back small. It says go north, up toward Cedar. Do not go north. You hear me. Whatever that paper says, whatever anybody with a bullhorn says later, you do not go north. He was looking at Selby the whole time he said it. You always told me never trust the paper, Dad. So which way do I go? South, away from the plant, toward the river. Now, trust me, not the paper. Take your shoes and go. A man sat in it. There was a beat where Gordon Selby could have become a different kind of man. He looked at the windsock. He looked at Russ. For 1 second, something moved behind his face. Then a phone buzzed in his pocket, and he looked at the screen, and whatever had moved went still and cold. I have to take this, he said. Nobody evacuates anybody. That's an order. That's the procedure. He walked 10 feet away and turned his back and took the call, and Russ stopped watching him. Because there was a woman named Esther Kane whose porch light he could see from the fence, and the cloud was almost to her street. Wendell, wind speed. There's a gauge on the roof. Go. Wendell went. He did not ask why he was taking orders from the shuttle driver. He came back in 90 seconds. 8 miles an hour, gusting to 12. Out of the north. Russ closed his eyes and did the math he had done 1,000 times in another life. Distance over speed. The oldest arithmetic in his trade. 13 minutes, he said. From when that alarm first went off, we've got about 13 minutes before the concentration at the first row of houses gets dangerous. And that alarm went off 6 minutes ago while your director called it a test. So really, we've got 7 minutes before Esther Kane's street is not survivable for a woman with bad lungs. And her oxygen machine is going to make it worse, not better. And she doesn't know that. And somebody has to tell her, and it is not going to be the county team, because they are 20 minutes out. Wendell stared at him. How do you know her name? Because I drive the van, Russ said. I drive these people to work. I know all their names. That's the part your director never understood. The man who drives you every night knows more about who's downwind than the man who signs the map. Then tell me what you need, Wendell said. All of it. I'll run whatever you can't reach. And he keyed the radio to the plant's own frequency, the one the whole crew monitored, and he did the thing he had sworn he would never do again. He took command. All crew, this is Boone on the Shuttle channel. We have a confirmed chlorine release wind out of the north, 8 gusting 12. Listen close. I'm only saying it once. Panel operators, stay on the panel. You're upwind, you're fine. Everybody else, move. East muster point, upwind, now. Do not go out the north gate. Say it back to me. Whoever's nearest the north gate. A voice crackled back, young, scared. Not the north gate? Why not? Because it's downwind. It's into the cloud. Good man. East gate, go. He was already moving toward the fence. Wendell, get the county team routed to the east gate, upwind, and radio me the second they cross the county line. Going, Wendell said, and went. Boone. Selby's voice cut across the channel, back from his phone call, tight and furious. You are not authorized to transmit on this frequency. You are a contractor. You drive a van. Then authorize it, Gordon. Authorize an evacuation right now, and I'll hand you the radio, and you can run it, and I'll go park cars. But if you're not going to give the order, I'm going to give it, because there is a 70-year-old woman 400 feet from a chlorine cloud, and she has about 7 minutes, and your procedure has already spent 6 of them. The county team is 20 minutes out. Do the subtraction, Gordon. 20 minus 7. Show me where the county team saves Esther Kane in that math. There was a silence on the channel, and into that silence, Gordon Selby made the worst decision of his life, which was not a cruel decision, but a frightened one. The decision of a man with someone worse than Russ on the phone in his other hand. Everyone hold position, Selby said. That's an order. We shelter in place and we wait for the county. Nobody evacuates. Boone, get off this channel. Gordon, Russ said, quiet into the radio so the whole crew heard it. In 2 minutes, you are going to wish you'd said the other thing. I'm going to make sure the recording shows I gave you the chance. Russ looked at Wendell. Wendell looked at the windsock. And then Wendell Pratt reached over, took the plant radio off his own belt, and handed it to Russ Boone. Stand down, Gordon, Wendell said. He had the commander's job for the whole district. You've got a clipboard. I'm giving him the radio, and if the county wants to know later who authorized it, you tell them Wendell Pratt looked at the windsock and believed his own eyes. And Russ ran for the fence gate with the plant radio in one hand and his own on his belt. And as he ran, he worked the plant channel like the instrument it was, short and flat and fast. Anybody on the north fence line? Report? 2 of us, north fence. Move east, now. You're in the path. Don't run walking pace. Running makes you breathe harder, and you do not want to breathe harder tonight. East gate, go. Copy, moving east. Panel, what's my source pressure? Still dropping, still venting. Then it's still open, and I'm still going for it. Anybody sees anybody heading for the north gate, you stop them with your body if you have to. North gate is closed as of now. Say it back. North gate closed. And somebody get on the phone to the houses on Cedar if you've got numbers for any of them. Tell them south. Not the notice on their door. South. The door notice is wrong tonight. Boone, the notice is the official... The official notice was printed when the wind blew the other way. Tonight it's a death warrant with a county seal on it. South. Tell them south. Good. He hit the gate and keyed his own radio to reach his daughter. Delia, are you out of the house? I'm outside. I'm on the sidewalk. Dad, it smells like a swimming pool out here. Why does the whole street smell like a swimming pool? Because that's the chlorine, and the fact that you can smell it means you need to move faster, not slower. Go south, toward the river, and stay in the middle of the street away from the low spots. The gas is heavy. It sinks. It pools in ditches and basements and low ground. Stay high, stay moving, go south. And Delia. He stopped at the gate. Mrs. Kane, 2 doors down from us. The old woman with the oxygen. Is her porch light on? Yeah, it's on. Dad, everybody's coming out. The whole street. People are yelling to go up toward the Cedar like the notice says. No, tell anybody who will listen. Not Cedar. Cedar is north, North is downwind. North is where it's going. South, toward the river. You yell that as loud as you can while you move, you understand me. You might be the only right voice on that street tonight. Okay, south. I'm yelling it. Good girl. Now, Mrs. Kane, on your way past her house, I need you to do one thing, and then you keep going. And you do not stop again for anybody. Bang on her door, loud, wake her up, and then run and do not look back. What do I tell her? She's going to be so scared, Dad. She lives alone. Russ was through the gate now, into the dark, into the faint, sweet, wrong smell that he knew better than any smell on earth, moving toward Esther Kane's porch light with his radio up. Nothing, he said. You just wake her and you run. I'll tell her the rest myself. I'm already on my way to her. Dad say. The street, when he reached it, had a mist on it. Not fog. This was lower, a thin layer along the ground, no higher than his knees. With a faint yellow-green tint the eye wanted to explain away and could not. It poured off the higher ground into the gutters and the low yards, finding the basements. Because it was heavier than the air and obeyed the same law water did. Russ Boone had seen that mist twice before. Both times, people died who did not need to. He got to Esther Kane's porch as her door opened, and a small woman in a nightgown looked out, the oxygen line trailing from her face back into the dark front room where the concentrator hummed. Mrs. Kane, Esther. It's Russ. I drive the shuttle, you know me. He kept his voice level, the voice he used to use, the one that told frightened people they were going to be all right, whether or not it was true. I need you to listen, and I need you to do 3 things fast. What's happening? Is there a fire? I smell something. It smells like a swimming pool. I know. It's not a fire. There's some bad air moving through, and I'm going to get you out of it. But first, that oxygen machine in your front room. I need you to turn it off right now. All the way off. Her hand went to the tube at her face. Turn it off? No, I need it. I can't breathe without it. The doctor said never. I know what the doctor said, and on any other night, he'd be right. But listen to me, Esther, because this is the part nobody would ever think to tell you. He took a slow breath so she would take one too. That machine doesn't carry its own air. It breathes the room. It pulls in whatever is around it, and it concentrates it, and it pushes it into your lungs stronger than it found it. That is what it is built to do. And what is around it right now is the exact thing I am trying to get you away from. So that machine is not helping you breathe tonight. It is pushing the poison into you faster than the open air would. Do you understand me? It is the most dangerous thing in your house right now. That can't be right. It's my oxygen. It's your oxygen most nights. Tonight it's a pump with its mouth in a bad river. Turn it off, Esther. Please. And that little green bottle you keep by the chair for when the power goes out, the emergency one. Bring that. It carries its own clean air. Use that instead. She stared at him for one terrible second. Then she reached back into the dark and switched the concentrator off, and the humming stopped, and she picked up the small green cylinder that stood by her chair for power outages. The one with 4 minutes of clean air in it. 4 minutes. Russ Boone looked at that little bottle, at the gauge on its side, and heard the number in his head in a voice that was not his own. 4 minutes. The same 4 minutes he had been late. The universe was not subtle tonight. He got Esther Kane down her porch steps and pointed her south, and he flagged a younger neighbor out of the next yard. Take her arm, that way toward the river. Don't stop. Don't go back for anything. Don't let her sit down. Go. What about you? I've got somewhere else to be. He watched them go 3 houses before he let himself turn back toward the plant, because the cloud was still coming. Shutting one woman's machine off did not stop the source. Somewhere back on the chlorine pad, a valve was open that should have been closed, and it would keep feeding the cloud until somebody closed it, because the automatic cutoff that should have closed it did not exist, because 2 years ago, somebody had decided it was not worth the money. Russ knew that valve. He had studied this plant the way he studied every place he drove, an old habit from an old life. There was a manual shutoff on the chlorine line, southwest corner of the pad, low, right where the gas would be pooling thickest. He keyed the radio. Wendell, The manual shutoff on the chlorine feed, southwest corner of the pad. I'm going for it. Russ, no. The gas is going to be worst right there. That's downhill of the whole yard. I know. That's how I know it's bad. Then let me send somebody younger. Somebody with... There's nobody younger who knows where the valve is and how to close it without making it worse. It's me or it's nobody, Wendell. He was already moving toward the pad. Get the county team routed to the east gate upwind and get me a mask if there's one in the panic box by the pad. And Wendell, whatever Selby says, do not let anybody follow me in there. 1 person exposed is a rescue. 2 is a body count. Russ, say it back so I know you heard it. Nobody follows you in. 1 is a rescue, 2 is a body count. A pause on the channel. Come back out, Russ. The panic box by the pad had 1 half-mask respirator in it, old, the filter probably past its date, and Russ pulled it on because past its date was better than nothing, and he went in low toward the southwest corner where the shutoff wheel was. The mist came up past his knees, past his waist as the ground dropped toward the corner, and even through the mask his eyes began to stream, and every breath tasted of metal and swimming pool, and something underneath that was just wrong. He found the wheel. He got both hands on it, and his hands would not turn it. Not because it was stuck, because they were shaking the way they had shaken at Ridgeline, the old betrayal coming up through his arms at the exact moment he needed them most. His own body remembering the last time it stood at a valve like this and choosing this moment to fail him again. He stood there in the poison, with his hands locked on the wheel, and for one endless second he was 2 years in the past, 4 minutes late, listening to people die because his hands would not close a valve. The radio crackled against his chest, his daughter's voice. Dad, I did what you said. I'm past the river bridge. I'm okay. Mrs. Kane's neighbor has her. She's out. She's breathing. Dad, are you okay? You're not answering. Dad, please, say something. He could not say anything. His throat was closed against the gas, and his hands were closed against him, and the wheel was not moving. Dad, I don't know where you are, but I know that voice you get. The one where you go quiet because you think if you're quiet, nothing bad is happening. A pause, and then his 16-year-old daughter said the thing that reached all the way down 2 years and pulled him up. You told me tonight to trust you, not the paper. So now I need you to trust you too. Whatever you're doing, do it. I've got you. And Russ Boone, standing in the mist with his hands shaking on the wheel, said one thing out loud, to himself, to the wheel, to 2 years of driving a van. Not this time. Not 4 minutes. Not tonight. He took his right hand off the wheel, and he clamped it around his own left wrist, hard, pinning it, bracing the shaking hand with the steady intent behind it, and he leaned his whole body into the turn. The wheel moved, a quarter turn, another. His eyes were streaming and his chest was starting to burn, and he could not have said a word if his life depended on it. But the wheel moved, and then it stopped. Seated, closed, and the faint hiss he had not even consciously registered until it ended. The source was shut. He did not remember letting go of the wheel. He remembered being on his knees, crawling back the way he had come uphill, toward the thinner air, and the mask coming off, and a hard, clean lungful of night that felt like swallowing broken glass. And then Wendell's arms under his, dragging him the last 20 feet. I've got you. Is it closed? Russ, is the valve closed? Closed? Russ managed. Source is shut. It's shut, Wendell. Okay. Don't talk. Ambulance is at the east gate. Wendell was half carrying him toward the upwind air. You crazy old man. You drive a van. Told you? Russ said and coughed, and the cough brought up something he did not look at. A van doesn't have a valve. This one had a valve. The county hazmat team arrived 4 minutes after the valve closed. 4 minutes. If the valve had still been open, that 4 minutes would have been 300 more feet of cloud, another 2 streets, another 40 houses. Instead, the team arrived to a source already shut and a neighborhood already emptying south. Who called the evacuation? The county commander asked. Whose incident is this? Because somebody ran this scene by the book before we got here. And I want to know who, because they saved me about 40 body bags. Mine? said Gordon Selby, stepping forward, and for one moment Russ thought the man was going to lie, was going to take the credit, and then Selby's voice cracked. No, it's not mine. I need to say this in front of everybody, because if I say it in an office later, I'll find a way to soften it. He turned to the county commander. I ordered them to shelter in place. I ordered them not to evacuate. He countermanded me, and he was right, and I have the sensor logs on my phone showing this alarm has been going off for 6 days. 6 days. And every time I was told to reset it and not report it, because reporting it meant an inquiry, and an inquiry meant the plant might close. I did what I was told. He did what was right. Write that down exactly. He handed over his phone. Karma for Gordon Selby was a great thing that night. He lost his job and kept his soul, which is more than the man who had been giving him those orders would manage. The county commander crouched down next to Russ, who was against the wall with a mask on his face. You're the one who ran this, the commander said. Before we got here. I drive the van, Russ said, muffled. Sure you do. And I coach my kids' soccer team. The commander looked at the empty neighborhood, the mist already thinning now that the source was shut. That was incident command, real command. Where'd you learn to read a plume like that? Long time ago. Another life. You've got a certification somewhere. A man who does what you just did. Had one. Gave it back. Why in the world would a man give that back? Russ looked out at the street, at the porch light 2 doors from his own house, still burning. Because I was 4 minutes late once, he said, and I decided that meant I didn't get to hold it anymore. The commander was quiet a moment. You weren't 4 minutes late tonight? No, Russ said. No, I wasn't. Yanis Warrig? They put Russ Boone on oxygen in the back of an ambulance, real oxygen, from a tank that carried its own clean air, and his daughter found him there and climbed in. You went in, Delia said. It was not a question. You went into it. He nodded, because his throat was not working for words yet. You always told me you drove a van because a van doesn't have a valve. She was crying and angry and proud all at once, the way only a 16-year-old can be 3 things at once. You found a valve, Dad? He got one word out, rough. Found it. She held on to him and did not say anything else for a while, and neither did he. It should have ended there. The rescue was done. The source was shut. The neighborhood was safe. That is not where it ended. Because 3 days later, a letter came. Isn't so? The letter was from the parent company that owned the Halvers Creek Waterworks, a firm called Meridian Civic Holdings, addressed to Russell Boone, and it did not thank him. It informed him that he was the subject of a civil action. That on the night in question, he had cut a company padlock without authorization, entered a restricted hazard area without current certification, operated safety equipment he was not licensed to touch, and transmitted evacuation orders on a private company frequency. It noted that his hazardous materials certification had been voluntarily surrendered 2 years prior and was not in effect that night. It was, in every particular, legally true. He had done every single thing the letter accused him of. That was the terrible part. The law, read coldly, was on Meridian's side, and Meridian meant to read it coldly, in open court, to make an example of a shuttle driver who had made them look negligent in front of the whole county. Russ read the letter twice. Then he set it on the kitchen table, next to the 2-way radio, and he looked at his hands, and they were shaking again, and this time he let them. What is it? Delia said from the doorway. It's the company, Russ said. They're suing me. For what? You saved the whole street. For saving it without their permission. He folded the letter. Turns out that's against the rules. 10. The hearing was held in the county building 3 weeks later, and the room was full because 40 households had woken in the night to a girl banging on doors and a voice on a plant radio telling them to go south when the paper on their doors said north, and every one of them wanted to see what the county would do to the man who had done it. Esther Kane sat in the front row with a small tank of oxygen on a cart beside her, breathing clean, bottled air in a room full of people who were only breathing at all because of the man the company had sued. Meridian's lawyer laid it out cleanly, every fact true. The broken lock, the surrendered certification, the unauthorized transmissions. And then, to close, he did the thing lawyers for companies like Meridian always do. Your Honor, Rather than bring our regional director in person, we'll put him on the line to state the company's position for the record. He set a phone on the table. He's a busy man. Please state your name and title for the record, the lawyer said. And a voice came out of the speaker, flat and dry and certain. Russ Boone had told you to remember this voice. Here it was. 2 years he had heard it in the dark before sleep, and now it came out of a phone on a table in a county hearing room, and every hair on his arm stood up because he had known. The second the lawyer reached for that phone, exactly whose voice was about to fill the room. Marlon Creed, Regional Director, Meridian Civic Holdings. Russ went very still in his chair. And Mr. Creed, for the record, was the equipment at the Halvers Creek plant in compliance with all applicable codes on the night in question? It was. The equipment met code. Everything at that plant met code. If Mr. Boone believes otherwise, he's mistaken. The same way he was mistaken about a great many things. The equipment met code. He simply acted outside his authority. The equipment met code. He simply acted outside his authority. Russ knew those words. He knew the exact shape of them, the exact flat music of them, because 2 years ago in a different hearing room, the same voice had said an almost identical sentence to him. The equipment met code. Mr. Boone, you were simply 4 minutes late. The same man, the man who 2 years ago told him the deaths at Ridgeline were his fault for being slow, was the same man who tonight told the plant to keep resetting its alarm. The same man who 2 years ago had personally denied the budget for the automatic cutoff valves, the upgrade that would have closed the Ridgeline valve without any man's hands at all. The man who blamed Russ for being slow was the man who made sure the machine that did not need a man would never be bought. The circle closed in 3 sentences out of a speaker on a table, and there was not a single piece of paper involved. Russ Boone stood up. I'd like to say something, he said. And then I'll accept whatever this room decides. I'm not going to argue the facts. The facts are all true. The hearing officer nodded. Everything in that letter is true. I cut the lock. I went in without a card. I gave orders I had no right to give. If you want to punish me for the letter of it, you can. And you'd be right about the letter. He looked at the speaker on the table, at the voice that could not see him. But I want the man on that phone to hear one thing, because he just said a sentence he said to me once before, and he doesn't know I recognized his voice. 2 years ago, my hands locked up on a valve. I was 4 minutes late. 3 people breathed something they couldn't take back, and this man sat across a table from me and said the equipment met code, and I was simply late, and I believed him. I turned in my card, and I drove a van for 2 years, because I believed the failure was my hands and not his budget. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. That valve at Ridgeline needed a man's hands because he had denied the automatic one. And the valve 3 weeks ago needed my hands for the exact same reason. Same denied upgrade. Same signature. Same man. His voice did not rise, which was worse than if it had. He has spent years telling men like me we were too slow, while making very sure the machine that would never be slow never got bought. He gets to call us slow because he made sure we'd always be the last thing standing between a valve and a neighborhood. 4 minutes is a thing you carry. It is not a thing you get to hide behind. He built the reason it fell on a pair of shaking hands, and then he blamed the hands. He sat down. There was a silence in the room, and then a small sound from the front row, and everyone turned, and it was Esther Kane on her feet, with her oxygen cart, looking at the speaker on the table as if she could see the man inside it. May I say something to the telephone? She said to the hearing officer, since the man inside it couldn't be bothered to come look at us in person. The hearing officer nodded. I'm the third one, Esther said to the speaker, in a voice thin from bad lungs but perfectly clear. Not from your Ridgeline, from this one. 3 weeks ago. I'm the woman who would be dead in her chair right now, in my own front room, with my own machine breathing poison into me, if this man you sued had stayed in his lane like you wanted him to. She took a slow pull of clean bottled air and went on. You said the equipment met code. I want you to hear this, whatever this room decides. I was asleep in a house full of code. Every wire, every alarm, every printed paper on my door met your code. And your code would have killed me quietly, without waking me up, because your code pointed the arrow the wrong way and never once looked out a window. The only thing in this whole county that did not meet your code was the man you're trying to punish. He's the reason I'm standing here. I wanted to say that to your face. This is as close to your face as you were willing to come." The speaker said nothing. There is nothing a speaker can say to that. Meridian Civic Holdings withdrew its civil action against Russell Boone 11 days later in a single-sentence letter with no apology in it, which was the closest thing to an apology a company like that knew how to write. The photograph did the rest. One of the residents, running south with a phone in her hand the way people do now, had taken a picture over her shoulder of the plant roof, and in it you could see the windsock clearly, pointing south towards the houses, and the phone had stamped it with the time. It was time-stamped 6 minutes before Marlon Creed's recorded instruction to hold position and not evacuate. 6 minutes before he said the wind did not justify it, a resident's telephone had photographed the wind pointing straight at her children. Paper against wind. And this time the wind had a timestamp. The state opened its own inquiry into Meridian, into the resets, into the denied upgrades, into a regional director who had spent 2 years telling slow men they were the problem. That inquiry is still going. It will outlast this story. Gordon Selby testified at it voluntarily every time they asked. He never got his job back. He seemed, the last time anyone saw him, like a man who slept better without it. Russ Boone did not get his certification back. They offered it to him. The state told him the card was his again anytime he wanted it. That a man who had done what he did belonged back in command. "Take the card, Russ," the state man said. "Take the desk. You earned command back." "I appreciate that," Russ said. "I do, but no." "Why not?" "You're the best plume reader I've got on a list of one." "Because command put me at a desk, and a desk is where I stopped knowing everybody's name." He shook his head. "I'll help you write the training. I'll come talk to your new people. But I'm going to keep the job where I know who's downwind." His lungs were not what they had been. He carried a small bottle of oxygen now, on a strap, the same kind Esther Kane carried. A permanent souvenir of 4 minutes in a yellow-green mist. Instead of a desk, he asked the waterworks, under its new management, if they still needed a shuttle driver. They did. So Russ Boone, Grease Watson drives the van again. 4 runs a shift. There is a new evacuation map on the control room wall now. It is not laminated. It has a blank box in the corner and a dry erase marker on a string, and the first thing every shift lead does when they come on is walk out to the roof, look up at the windsock, and write the current wind direction in the box. By hand. Updated by the hour. Nobody thanks Russ for that box. Most of the new crew does not know he is the reason it exists. It just sits there. A piece of paper that finally admits it cannot see the wind. The wind doesn't read the plan. It takes whoever's downwind. Somebody has to look up at the sky instead of down at the paper. His daughter rode along with him one night, a few weeks after he started back, sitting in the passenger seat of the van while he made his runs. At the end of the last run, he pulled up to the gate and put the van in park and reached over to pull the key from the ignition. Delia watched her father's hand as it reached for the key. She had watched that hand shake for 2 years. She had watched it hide low against his leg, tuck into pockets, grip the wheel too hard so no one would see. It did not shake now. It closed on the key, steady, and turned it, and the engine went quiet. "Dad?" Delia was looking at his hand. "Your hand." "I know. It's not shaking." "I know." He looked at it too for a second. The two of them in the dark cab looking at one steady hand on a key. First time in 2 years it did what I told it to when it mattered. Turned out it just needed to matter enough. "Does it hurt?" "The breathing." She glanced at the little bottle on its strap at his hip, the twin of Esther Kane's. "Some. Every day, some." He pulled the key free and pocketed it. "It's a fair trade, Delia. I spent 2 years thinking the 4 minutes made me a man who should keep his hands hidden. Turns out the 4 minutes just made me a man who knows exactly what 4 minutes costs. That's not a thing to hide. That's a thing to put to work." He almost smiled. "I put it to work." She reached over and turned the radio between them up a little, and the two of them sat there a moment in the quiet before the walk home. A man who had stopped hiding his hands, and the daughter who had trusted him before she ever knew why she should. Above them, on the roof, the windsock turned in the dark, and somewhere inside the plant, a shift lead looked up at it and wrote down what it said.